off a 5% winner in the NHL, and it was the Boston Bruins, guys. And I'll tell you what, that coaching bump, the fact is, in multiple sports, NBA, NHL, NFL, whatever it may be, whether it's against the spread or straight up, these teams just seem to have success after they fire their coach. It's just the way it is. And the Boston Bruins, they win it 1-0. It wasn't the most exciting win by any means, but we certainly saw a full defensive effort by the Boston Bruins. We saw a big game yesterday between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning, 7-6. That was a crazy game between those two teams. And we saw a lot of exciting hockey overall on the slate. And guys, I got to give credit to one team before we jump into this show. And I feel like it's one team that I haven't talked about enough on this show. The Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild have been unbelievable, guys. I mean, I think they only have 3 losses on the year in regulation. They have been incredible. Their defense has been great. Both goaltenders have been good. I don't give out a ton of futures on this show. I think that we should all log into our sports books right now and just sprinkle a little small future bet on the Winnipeg Jets, on the Minnesota Wild, because them and teams like the Winnipeg Jets, Washington Capitals are playing such good hockey, but they're flying a bit under the radar. And you take a look right now, Dallas Stars 9-1, Avalanche 12-1, Golden Knights 18-1. The Minnesota Wild are 20-1 to win the Stanley Cup. That is a great, great number. So just wanted to mention that. Obviously, it's a slate where we just have 2 games to go over. Carmine should be here with us, guys, in a few minutes. I heard he's getting his eyebrows done. That's what he told me earlier. He had an appointment this morning. The haircut, he didn't really need that, but the eyebrows, he's working on those. But again, Winnipeg, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Anaheim. And Carm, you were right there with me on the Buffalo coach or the Boston coaching bump as well. And overall, it just seems to always work well for some of these teams. But any takeaways from you on last night's slate? And what are your thoughts on what I was just saying there? I'm not sure if you heard. Minnesota, 20-1 to win the Stanley Cup. What the hell does this team have to do to get any respect in the betting markets? Look, I don't find myself betting on this team enough, which is why I'm announcing it to everybody that watches our show every single day that I'm hopping on this Wild bandwagon with Terry Edelman because they are a good hockey team and they have been very consistent this season. How are you, Carm?
I'm good. I'm not really sure what happened there. My computer my camera completely shut down on me, but everything seems to be working. I think you guys can hear me okay. Thankfully, yeah, Andrew, some pretty good games last night. Even the ones I didn't have action on, I was watching, and it was a great slate of action. It kind of sucks that there's only a couple of games tonight, but kudos to you on the Boston Bruins. That was a bit of a sweat, I know, but they played so well defensively in that game. And I talked about that. I thought, after playing an absolutely flat game, their previous one against Columbus, that they would play well with their new coach Joe Sacco, interim coach, I guess, for the time being, and that they did, and that was with Korpisalo. Korpisalo played really well in net last night. And then a couple surprises. Some guy in chat yesterday asked me what I thought about the Columbus game. I'm like, I'm not touching it because Columbus seems to play well against good teams at home. And lo and behold, what was it, 13 goals in that game, 7-6 final? It was before you could blink, it was 3-0 Tampa. And then it was all of a sudden it's 4-3 Columbus. And it was just this seesaw battle. Probably great for in-game bettors, but not so much for a fan of either team blowing those leads, Andrew. But Winnipeg, Pittsburgh today, Buffalo, Anaheim in the late one. And of course, as you mentioned, you're going to have your props. I'm going to have a 6-60. If we can one better last week, we'll have a perfect 6-0, 6-60, 5-1 last week. I'd be perfectly happy with another 5-1 week. What do you think?
I mean, the pressure's on you now. You've set the standard. You've set the standard now. You've set the bar of what it is, what it has to be with these 6. That's the problem. You have a 5-1 week, Carm. Nobody's gonna want any less.
Yeah,
That's the bar now at this
we,
point. And that's a heavy bar to
yeah,
set.
no. You might as well go to the bar and have a few drinks because it's a first look. So like the betting numbers aren't even out yet, but based on what I think the projected lines will be, I hope I've got a decent card. And it's just a look ahead card. Like I said, there's 6 games that we'll look at for a Saturday's card that I'll look at for Saturday's card. A couple of them might make my client plays, or none of them might make my client plays. So, don't be surprised if, the 6 and 60 goes 4 and 2 and none of them were client plays. This is just a first look. And then I look at them with fresh eyes later on in the day when the betting numbers come out. The betting numbers are probably the most important thing you should think about when you're putting together any of your cards or your action for that day or the coming days and weekends, Andrew. But Winnipeg Jets minus 160, the Pittsburgh Penguins plus 135 at home. Totals here a little surprising. This total is 6.5, shaded to the under 15. And Andrew, I say it's a bit of a surprise because I just wouldn't think that this is a game in which we're going to see a lot of goals. Winnipeg's a very good team. Pittsburgh is struggling right now, and this is the first of a back-to-back for Pittsburgh. They have the Utah Hockey Club coming in tomorrow. Um, and I always go back to the same thing: is if a team is struggling, the best way to get out of a slump is to revert to defense first, offense second. Is Pittsburgh even capable of a defense first, offense second type of scenario? I'm not sure, but the Winnipeg Jets might be the right one for them, coming off of that win at home against Florida, where they got some rapid revenge over them. Now hitting the road to take on Pittsburgh. It's one I don't want to lay the number on Winnipeg because it's minus 116. You just listen. This Jets team deserves to be favored, but 160 is probably a little bit out of my price range for this one. I do like the under in this game. I'm going to take under 6.5. Lay the 15 cents vig in this one. It's a line I think is likely should have been 6. So because I'm getting 6.5, I'm more than happy to take the under in this one. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
My thoughts are it's tough to take an under in any Pittsburgh game. So I tip my cap to you for taking an under in a Pittsburgh game. They have had some unders, don't get me wrong. And it is Freaky Friday. And we've seen a lot of weird things been happening lately on Fridays in the NHL, kind of like getaway day, as I always say, in the NHL, that kind of equivalent to the MLB. Saturday is the big day. And for some reason, I've noticed Winnipeg's always been giving these Friday games as of late. But when I look at some of the victories that Winnipeg's had lately, I find myself asking myself, where's the letdown spot going to be? Right. And we looked at that rapid revenge spot for Winnipeg against Florida. They lose to Florida and they say, you know what? It's all right. We're going to go home. We're going to get the job done 6-3 and bounce back against them. Right. And they did that. So when I look at this matchup against Pittsburgh, I just don't really see this Winnipeg team at this point as a team that has a letdown game, a team that, sees they're playing a lesser quality opponent and doesn't show up. You look at some of the games they've played against good teams, bad teams, against the Red Wings, 6-2, against Utah, 3-0, the Blue Jackets, 6-2. No matter who they're playing, they're putting up goals and they're finding ways to win. And I have noticed against non-playoff teams, they're actually being involved in higher scoring games versus more of playoff teams. Carm, it might be a little predictable for me with this one, but I'm going to go with the team total over for Winnipeg. Not sure if it'll make my betting card or not, but I do think they reached that magic number of 4. The funny thing is, though, when you look at it and you count it up, they have, I think, 16 wins on the season. In, I think, 9 games, they've hit the team total. So it's kind of interesting to see this team. They have found ways to win low-scoring and high-scoring games right now, but one thing about Pittsburgh is that they lack depth. And, Carm, I'm sure you'd agree with me. I don't want to keep venting about how it makes me mad that this Pittsburgh team is the way it is and Crosby's career is going to just fizzle out like this. It's horrible. But the fact is they lack depth. And we talked about it a couple of times before, but What's your takeaway with them trading away Lars Eller? Like, is that because he was actually scoring goals for them this year? Does that mean they're going to try and pick somebody else up and create cap space, or what are they doing? Getting ready for next year already? I don't know what the deal is right now with this Pittsburgh team. I really don't. They blow a lead against the Sharks and then they win in shootouts. They find ways to make everything difficult, it seems.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the game plan is in Pittsburgh. I wish I would listen. I wish I knew. I think that it is one that they wait till the turn of the year. Maybe after the that 10-day or 14-day break for the Nations Cup that comes in February, and reevaluates the team. Reevaluates their cap ahead of the trade deadline. And if this is a team, the Pittsburgh Penguins aren't a team that their fan base and the players themselves, Sidney Crosby, Malkin, Rust, the guys in that dressing room, that they want to be a ninth or 10th place team battling for a seventh or eighth place wild card spot. They're a team that wants to be top three in their division, but they don't have that makeup for this team, unfortunately, and that falls on prior GMs and the current GM Kyle Dubas, although he's not responsible for some of those contracts that were there beforehand. So it's one that come after that the Four Nations Cup, if this team is mired in ninth or 10th, they become a seller. They become a seller at the trade deadline. Who's going to move though? Sidney Crosby's not going to move unless it was for the betterment of the team, where he said, okay, if you guys get a sweet ass deal with a bunch of draft picks to make me a short term rental for another team, then I'll go. But this guy loves his city. He's not going to leave. It is tough with players who are as loyal as Sidney Crosby is and Malkin are, that these guys will ever leave to go elsewhere, even though their contracts are sort of saddling the team and slowing them down. So we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh. They can still be entertaining in the meantime. Let's just hope it's not
Yeah.
tonight. Give me like a 4-1 Winnipeg final. That makes us both happy, I think.
That That's fine with me. And Carm, I know you got a t-shirt guy because you made a few t-shirts for us on PuckTime. I need you to get me a shirt that says "Free Crosby, Free Sid." We got a free Sid. Bring him over to Colorado. Make it work with the cap space. Let him play with McKinnon and win a Stanley Cup with over there. That's never going to happen. But it's tough to see. And a quick update on Crosby's rival Ovechkin, because the Capitals are doing really well. 4 to 6 weeks is what the injury update is for him. And we'll see. I think it might end up being even more than that. So it's a real shame, Carm, about Ovi. As my friends and I always compare the Penguins and the Capitals because they were rivals for so many years. And it bothers us that Ovechkin's team was able to still remain good. And yet Pittsburgh has kind of fallen off so much. But we'll see how they do without the grade 8, because 4 to 6 weeks is a long time to miss your best player, your sniper, and the guy chasing that record. So any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, I hate to see it because I like Ovi. Like I mentioned yesterday, off to his probably his best start. I think he led or he's leading the league in goal scoring. He was probably certain to break Gretzky's record this season, but when you're off with was it a fractured fibula, even when you do come back, you just don't know if the guy's ever going to be like 100%. So whether it's this season or whether it's next season, and he comes back and he's healthy next season, he's going to break that record. I'm not one of those guys that being a Canadian is like, oh, Gretzky's records are untouchable. I don't want to see anybody break them. I'm a fan of hockey. I don't care who breaks the records. You want to be a part of it. You want to see it. You want to see it happen. So I put that stuff aside. I think the nationalism or whatever comes when it's like Team Canada versus Team USA, or like the Four Nations coming up, the best of the best playing the best of the best of another country. whether it's a European country, whether it's here in North America. That's where your allegiance to Canada or the U.S. should come in. Because let's Andrew, let's make something perfectly clear, and then move on to the next game because we spent a lot of time on this. You look at, they say the Stanley Cup hasn't been in Canada for 30 plus years, but the makeup of teams that win it in the U.S. Um, a majority of the players, over 50% of the players, are Canadian players. This is a league that is based on economy, and more than anything else. Players love it in Florida because there's no tax. Players love it in the West Coast. It's similar. Players don't want to come to Canada and lose half of their salary to our tax structure. It just absolutely stinks, to put it mildly. But it's like this in every sport. The Raptors won the championship. How many Canadians were on the team? So yes, the trophy was north of the border, but it was a majority of Americans on the team. So
Right.
I'm a fan of whatever team cashes a ticket for me on any given night,
Gotcha.
Andrew. And with
Carm,
that
I got
said,
real quick. I got two props I want to
yeah,
mention. Two props, and I know it's not
sure.
the prop segment. And the reason why I didn't put these two in the prop playbook segment, is because they're pretty chalky. But these two are kind of worth mentioning. I thought Brian Rust, and this goes actually back to last year. 12 of his last 15 games playing at home, he's got a point. And I've looked at home road splits all the time when it comes to player props. Some guys just seem to be better at home. Some guys seem to be better on the road. 12 of the last 15 games, the number's minus 140. And I talk about how top heavy the Penguins are. It's kind of a good number there just based on how there's not that many options. Minus 140 for Rust. And then I'm sure you don't remember this trade. Do you remember the Pierre-Luc Dubois, LA, and Winnipeg trade? When they got Gabe Vilardi from LA. I couldn't believe Winnipeg got Gabe Vilardi. That was a horrible trade for LA. Vilardi has a point in 9 of his last 11 games overall, but he's minus 160, Carm. So that's why I didn't put it on the prop playbook segment, but those are two guys worth mentioning for tonight that are playing extremely well, kind of red hot with their streaks. Sorry to jump in, but I just wanted to mention those two guys.
It's all good. It's funny because I'm going to have a player prop in this next game that I'm laying a little bit of vig with, but it's one that I like it. So we've got the Sabres minus 150, Anaheim plus 130. Sabres get a win in LA, winning that game 1-0. The return of Pekka Luukkonen was back in the lineup. Sabres played a very good game. There wasn't much, if any, open ice in that game, Andrew. At one point, I think going into the third period or in the third period, the shots on goal were something like 13-12. You're not going to get a lot of goals in a game where there's only 25 shots on goal, but I think that changes tonight. You look at these two teams. Anaheim has played some pretty good hockey of late. They're scoring some goals, and you got the Sabres who once their power play started to come around, this team is is getting better. They're getting healthier. Uh, Tuck is starting to play a little bit better as well too. This is one in which I like the Sabres at minus 150. I don't know who the goalie is, so it's not going to be a goalie dependent game. It's the first of a back to back. It'll either be Luukkonen tonight, James Reimer tomorrow, or James Reimer tonight and Luukkonen tomorrow. It's not a goalie dependent game. I think that this is a road trip in which the most difficult game, I think, for the Sabres was the first one against the LA Kings. I think they can beat Anaheim, and I think they can beat San Jose tomorrow and build some momentum. This is a team that at this time of year needs to be stockpiling some wins and putting some streaks together if they want to be considered a team that can fight for a playoff spot in the second half of the season. They have to win the games that they're supposed to win, and this is, I think, one in which they're supposed to win, Andrew. So I'm going to take the Sabres minus 150. But as far as the shot prop, Rasmus Dahlin of the Sabres, his shot prop is at 2.5. But you have to lay juice. It's minus 160-ish, minus 162 at DraftKings. Except for the last game in which, as I mentioned, there weren't a ton of shots on goal in the game against the LA Kings. He's 9-1 to this prop, the over in his last 10 games. He's getting a ton of ice time for the Buffalo Sabres, deservedly so, about 25 minutes a night. He's 9-1 to the over on his shot props the last 10. And I will lay the vig with Rasmus Dahlin tonight to make that 10-1 in his last 11 games. What do you think, Andrew?
I love it, Carm, and I love those defenseman props. The books don't move those numbers as much on the defenseman props. Rasmus Dahlin, El Capitano, the captain, he's doing very, very well for the Buffalo Sabres. As I'm sure he wishes the team was doing as well as he is with his prop bets because he's cashing tickets with shots, with point props, and all that good stuff. You know who I worry about in this game is Lucas Dustal because he's been really good. He's been the number one goaltender for Anaheim. And if it wasn't for him, they'd probably have even more losses on the season. Dustal with 2.69 goals against average, 9.24 save percentage. I got to look for some regression, though. His goals saved above average, Carm, is unbelievable. It's up there in the top of the league. And he's been helping this Anaheim team out a lot. And to your point about Buffalo needing to rack up wins against certain teams like this one. And again, when I look at Pekka Luukkonen, it's not like I don't want to bet on him. And it's not like I don't want to take them. But I always say Friday's the day of underdogs, but I really, I gave out Winnipeg team total, but this one to me, I like even more is Buffalo plus 100 to get to 4 goals. How many games can we really believe Buffalo can pile up wins without scoring 4 or 5 goals, Carm? I look at some of their numbers that they've scored recently. Yeah, sure, they had that 1-0 win recently, but 5-2, 4-3, 7-5. Like, this is a high-scoring team that probably doesn't want to win like that, but I feel like that's just the nature of the beast with them is that they're going to play some fast games. I mean, I'll think back to their game against the Montreal Canadiens. That game was nuts. Both goalies got pulled. Both teams reached the 5-goal mark. It was incredible. No matter which team you had on the team total, and I think you had the team total that day, you cashed the ticket. So at plus 100, I'll rock with the Sabres to get to 4 goals for me. And I was saying this earlier to somebody, and I think you'll probably agree with me. Hockey is one of those sports I think you actually can use recency bias with. And the reason why I'm saying this is, and I'll use an example. The Ottawa Senators' last 2 games came against teams that were off a game where they were shut out. I mean, how much does that suck? You're getting a team that's so motivated and so embarrassed and so pissed off. They got the Oilers shut out against the Habs, and they got Vegas after being shut out against Toronto. So Ottawa lost both those games. But in this scenario, you got the Ducks off 2 wins. When's the last time the Ducks won 3 straight games in a row? Right? I think this is a spot where the Buffalo Sabres take advantage of an Anaheim Ducks team that relies heavily, heavily, heavily on their goaltending, and they just simply won't be able to go toe-to-toe with them. So if Lucas Dustal keeps playing the way he's playing, he deserves a ton of credit, but I don't know if he can keep doing this.
Yeah, he's taken over the number 1 spot for John Gibson, and there's obviously talk that maybe this is the year that they finally move Gibson. It feels like on PuckTime for the last 4 years, we've talked at the trade deadline of who's going to get John Gibson. This might be the year for it if anyone wants him, given his age. But as far as Dostal goes, I think you look at his last 4 home games, I believe he's allowed 4, 5, 5, and 3 goals. So despite them winning games, they're also allowing goals. So we'll see what this game brings with it tonight. But final fact on the Sabres, and then we'll get to your props segment, and then the 6 and 60, Andrew, is the fact that when I talk about the Sabres having to accumulate wins, this is a Sabres team that normally in October and November bury themselves, and they just can't overcome it in the second half of the season. Last year, I believe on the 1st of December, the Sabres were 7 points behind the 8th place spot for a playoff spot, 7 points back. They finished the season 7 points back of a playoff spot. So what does that tell you? They pretty much kept pace in the second half of the season from December on with every other team that was vying for a playoff spot. But it is the beginning of the season that buried them. And this is why games like this, they won 5 of 7, and they need to beat Anaheim. They need to beat San Jose. These are non-conference games in which you need to pick up the points and stockpile them for that second half of the season. But with that said, Andrew, let's get into the props. You got it, some for us. Let us know what we're betting on tonight in the prop market.
Carm, I chose two props in the Buffalo and Anaheim game. Before I jump into those props, I just want to remind people for one last time about that promo code WEEK69. A week of all my plays for $69. We cashed a 5% play yesterday. That play was up for sale for $35. All right, two 5% plays. You pay off this special. A lot of you guys joined me yesterday on that deal. Instead of buying that 5%, we're off to a 2-0 start. Yesterday, we hit a 2%. We hit the 5% play. And I love Saturday's board in the NHL. I also like some plays in the NFL on Sunday. So take advantage. Week 6-9. Get 7 days. All my favorite plays across every sport for $69 over there at WagerTalk. And again, you guys know I'm tweeting out free picks. I'm posting free plays on TikTok, on Instagram. But all my best bets are the ones that go out to clients. All right, Carm. Buffalo and Anaheim. Obviously, two teams that aren't too high in the standings, but I still feel like you can make money from a player prop perspective with them. And I think the big thing is that you look at teams that are kind of the best of the best, the most elite teams. It means they have depth. I actually find those teams harder to predict sometimes as far as their props are concerned. You want to know a good example? Matthew Tkachuk only has a couple goals on the season, and yet Florida Panthers are dominant to start the year. Number one in the Atlantic Division, yet one of their better players isn't even having a good season. Well, that's not the case for these teams. If their better players don't play well, then that means their team doesn't play well. Let's start things off with Dylan Cousins from the Buffalo Sabres, a player that I think is really strong, and he'd get more credit if he played for a different team. We're going to go with him to record a point. This is a matchup play because for whatever reason it may be, guys, Buffalo, or when Dylan Cousins with Buffalo always plays well against Anaheim. They aren't even in the same conference. As Carm mentioned on PuckTime, you want to stack up wins against non-conference opponents. And Buffalo seems to do well against Anaheim, and Dylan Cousins seems to do well against Anaheim. 4 straight games for him against Anaheim. 5 of his last 6 meetings against Anaheim, he has a point. And another guy we'll go to, and this isn't a matchup bet. This is just a red-hot bet here. Alex Colarone from the Anaheim Ducks to get a point. We're going to take Colarone to get us a point at plus money. Alex Colarone is a power forward for the Anaheim Ducks. He's a guy that is not going to score the fanciest goals, not going to score the highlight reel goals, but he's more of a leader on this team. And you're going to get a really good plus price. And the number that I got is plus 110. So you guys can lock that in. Colarone to get a point. 4 straight games for him. He's gotten a point. He's done a lot better for them when they've played at home, especially. And he's someone that I think is going to have a good night tonight for the Anaheim Ducks. So 2 player props on 2 teams that I'm probably not watching many of their games. I'm probably not involved betting in a lot of their games, but I think it's 2 teams, guys. Don't forget to bet player props on teams like this. Everybody wants to bet player props on Colorado. People want to bet player props on the best teams in the league, on the Floridas, the Winnipegs. But don't forget about these lesser teams because they also have value in the player prop market. Over to you, Carm, for any thoughts, any rebuttals on those plays.
No, I like them all. I like them both. We'll see how it goes. It's a short card tonight, so we're hoping we can find some plays for you guys on the show that will hit. Some of these don't make our client cards, but we do want to give you some type of content or some idea of what our line of thinking is when we're trying to come up with plays, and then allow you guys to evaluate. And maybe it changes your mind, or maybe it gets you on a play that you wouldn't have thought about originally taking. So, take every little bit of tidbit of information and do with it as you please, which takes us to the 6 and 60 now. I'm going to give you a few little tidbits. I'm going to try and get it done in 60 seconds. Joe Ranieri last week started the clock well before I was even ready for it. God only knows what producer Dan's going to do here. But Dan, anytime you're ready, fire up that clock. There we go. Florida and Colorado. Warning signs for Florida after a loss in Chicago. No, I think they get the win here. They usually get up for good teams at home, and Colorado is a good team. Give me Florida money line. Columbus and Carolina. I'm going to take the over. Blue Jackets play tough teams home at well and score goals. 7-2 to the over at home for Columbus this season. Take the over. Ottawa and Vancouver. Vancouver money line. Hard to say a team has looked good in losing 2 games, but Vancouver really has. And they've won the last 4 games against the Sens over the last 2 seasons. Vancouver money line. Pittsburgh and Utah, 2 struggling teams. Usually defense reigns supreme to get out of a slump. Give me the under in that one. Washington and New Jersey. The road team reigns supreme in this one, having won 7 of the last 8 games. Washington did beat them 6-5 in New Jersey earlier this season. Give me the Devils money line. And then finally, Sabres and Sharks, second of a back-to-back, but the Sabres winners of 7 of their last 8 prior to the Friday night game in Anaheim. Give me the Sabres money line over the Sharks. That's your 6 in 60. Almost.
I think you got it.
I almost got there.
Got it. I think you got it that time,
didn't
Carm.
hear-
Well done. Well done.
I
You
didn't hear
got
the
it.
bell from or the gong from Dan, our producer, but we shall see what happens.
There were no
So,
boos.
Maybe we
There were
rename it.
no boos.
No booze either. Yeah, he couldn't find the boo button. So, and because of that, I am going to take the Eagles this weekend for him. So, oh God, please don't, he says. Fly, Eagles, fly. I'm not going to do the song.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Andrew, okay. With that said, Andrew, all right. So I've got one play up at WagerTalk right now in the NHL. Is a 4% best bet selection. You can get it over at wagertalkwt.buzz/CB. My college and NFL are going up shortly once this show is done, as well as some European football. The international break is over. We finished on a tremendous run over the last 7 or 8 days in soccer, picking up almost 20 units of profit. Let's see if we can keep that going. My show free play is going to be the Rasmus Dahlin over 2.5 shots on goal -162. 9-1 to his shot props the last 10 games for Rasmus Dahlin. Let's see if he can do it once again tonight in Anaheim, a team that does allow a lot of shots on goal. Andrew, what do you got up for your clients at WagerTalk? And give us a show best bet and close this out.
Karma, I'm not sure if I'm getting to the window tonight in the NHL. You guys heard my opinions. You heard a few props that I like for tonight, but I've got one NBA team total play that I'm looking at, and I'm very low volume across the board in the association, but it's a good night to get involved in the NBA, so you guys can grab that, but also get ready for a jam-packed Saturday slate. I'll have the Every Game on the Board podcast out early morning Saturday. It's been great response from you guys on that for Saturday. But like I said, I love Saturday's NHL slate, and I've already looked ahead to it. So I'll have some plays up as the numbers start to pop up, as we get odds on every sports book, and hopefully we'll find the numbers that we really do like. But again, week 6-9, guys, is the best promo code available right now for me. Take advantage, get my NFL, get my NHL, get my NBA, get anything that I'm releasing to clients for 1 week for $69. WT.buzz/AM. And guys, that promo code, although he didn't mention it, works for Carmine too. It works for Carm too. So make sure, take advantage of that for Carm. He's busy this weekend across all sports. My best bet, though, we're going to go up and over 3.5 goals for Winnipeg. You got to ride the hot hand. This team, no letdown spots for them. This is a team that's just finding a way to get the job done. They're scoring goals, and Pittsburgh's defense, I simply do not trust. All right, that will do it for Puck Time for this week. We will see all of you guys on Monday. Hope you all have a very profitable and successful betting weekend. All the best. We'll see you next time right here on Puck Time.